You're listening to the Grassroots Church podcast. We're a Jesus-centered community in Thunder Bay, Ontario. You can learn how to participate more by going to our website at grassroots.church.
We're talking with ordinary folks from within this community, people who have made Grassroots Church their home, who, for years or just even a couple of months or whatever, and we're just finding out, what does faith look like in the everyday lives of grassrooters? How has your faith grown and matured and changed over the years to the point where you are, wherever you're at right now? And so having a conversation about that, talking about the everyday life of Jesus followers from Grassroots. And so that's what we've been doing. And like I said, we've had two conversations. We had one with Russell, like way back, it seems at the beginning of the summer. And then we had, a couple weeks ago, we had Amy, and just two beautiful humans, but two beautiful stories. And just, I love the ways you wrestled through your faith and how you have kind of gotten to this point. And so this morning, we're carrying on that theme, carrying on that conversation, and we are going to have a discussion with Marianne Jones. And so I'm going to invite Marianne. Marianne and Reg have been coming to our church for almost a year? No. Yeah? About a year. Good. And so I'm going to invite Marianne to come up here. And as she does, I would like you to give her a hand. All right. And I'm going to read her bio, and then we're going to get into a conversation. And again, this is just to explore Marianne's life, get to know her a little bit, find out what makes her tick, and find out about her faith and what it looks like today, okay? Okay, let me read this bio. Marianne grew up in a literary family shaped by her mother's deep love for the arts. And I have a feeling we will see the arts come out in this conversation a fair bit. At home, afternoons are often filled with opera and classical music and the occasional Broadway musical for variety. What's your favorite Broadway? You have to use this. Nobody can hear you otherwise. Okay, I'll let you think about that while I read this. Or do you got one?
Well, actually, the thing that I loved the most was actually an opera. Was Carmen Jones. That was the American version of Carmen, the opera. And I just fell madly in love with that. That's what comes to my mind.
Okay, good. I think of Carmen, the CCM performer. Probably a little bit different. Is that not quite? Okay. Both theatrical, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if anyone knows Carmen from the 90s. Anyone? No? Okay, there's a few. I know, you got me. Okay, sorry, I will stay focused here. Her mother collected art books, pointed out her favorite artists, and read poetry aloud. Surrounded by that beauty, Marianne developed a love for reading, writing, and performing. She dreamed of being an artist, a writer, or an actor. Marianne came to faith at university through InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and from that moment wanted to devote her life to serving God and his kingdom. When she and Reg married, they faced the decision of whether to attend the Presbyterian church that she'd grown up in, or the evangelical church his parents had started. Full of zeal and wanting a strong evangelical emphasis, she chose his church. That choice became her introduction to the fundamentalist world. It was confusing because she encountered assumptions that she had never heard before. Ideas like feminists are evil, or all Christians vote conservative, or business people are more valued than thinkers and creators, and artists and the arts are suspect. For Marianne, the arts had always been a place of truth and life. She knew Jesus was her savior, but she also knew that great writers often spoke truth at a depth the church avoided. A life without beauty, she felt, was only half a life. Yet she never dared to challenge the narrative and began to feel like an outsider, somehow less holy and less acceptable to God. Over the years, Marianne and Reg relocated several times with his career, and when they eventually returned to Thunder Bay, his church felt even narrower than before. By then, Marianne had found a home in the writing and theater community where she felt accepted and understood. That only highlighted how out of place she felt at church. She began to suspect that the church wanted people on their team rather than in their hearts. Eventually, Marianne realized that acceptance based on conformity wasn't really acceptance at all. And so there was no point in conforming. I love that about you. When she decided to be herself, regardless of the consequences, Marianne felt a deep affirmation from God. She came to see that being an artist was not wrong in his eyes. After all, he made her that way. She began to appreciate God as the ultimate artist and the source of all beauty. In time, Marianne and Reg began attending Redwood Church, where Marianne was able to join the drama ministry. One moment especially spoke to her. While she was performing in a Cambrian Players production, her small group decided to cancel their Thursday night Bible study so that they could all attend her play together. She was deeply moved, because in her previous church, theater might have been met with disapproval at worst and indifference at best. But here, Marianne experienced something different. A community willing to show up, to celebrate her gifts, and to make space for her whole self. So Marianne, thank you for joining us this morning. And what an honor to have you and Reg be part of our community now, and just that you're willing to participate in this conversation today. So thanks. Let's start our conversation. Now, clearly there is this thread of the arts playing a role in your life. And I want to ask you first about the various forms of art that you have a particular inkling toward, a drawing toward, if there's one over another one. Like, is it, theater? Is it writing? Is it painting? Whatever it might be. And so is there one form of art expression that compels you most, that you feel most talented, most gifted in, most drawn to, that you can speak to?
I guess I've always been drawn to words and trying to find the exact right words. It's always seemed very important to me, even when I was very small, to find the exact words. I guess what the French call le mot juste, to describe an experience so that other people could understand what I was saying. And later, I guess I discovered that was the gift of being a writer.
Yeah.
And I wrote, I remember writing a poem when I was around 11 and crafting it. And I took such satisfaction in crafting it that's when the thought came to me, I know what I want to be. I want to be a writer. And again, I felt that affirmation, which has stayed with me, I guess, all my life.
Well, and you've really lived into that. I mean, you've written 8 books, published 8 books, aside from poetry, right? Like, you've written tons of poetry as well. She has poetry published on the seats down at the marina, by the way. If you ever walk down there, you'll see Marianne Jones' name beside some poetry, which is beautiful. But you've written 8 books. The last one you wrote was, I think, a couple years ago. It was called, I have it written here, Death on the Water. Can you talk just a little bit about that book? Tell us the kind of books you write.
Oh, Death on the Water was just for fun.
Oh, okay.
It's a murder mystery set in Thunder Bay, and it was inspired by a friend of mine who, she's divorced now, but the family that her husband came from was rather insane, so I thought, this just inspired this crazy story.
So we should all go read this. Sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, is there one of these books that you're most proud of, that you would like?
Well, my novel, Maud and Me, really is, it's a metaphorical description of my spiritual life, my spiritual journey. And it came to me almost like a vision that God gave me about over 20 years ago, a very clear picture of the late Lucy Maud Montgomery, who wrote Anne of Green Gables, appearing in this modern day woman's garden and striking up a conversation with her. And I wondered why, but then I realized the parallels there. Ella Montgomery was a minister's wife and a creative artist who had to spend her whole life in an environment that was not supportive of of her as an artist.
I can see the
Nevertheless.
parallels.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Huh. So what's the name of that book?
Maud and Me.
Maud and Me. Okay. Was that written like many years ago, or is that relatively new?
It was published in 2021, and then
Okay.
in 2022 it won the Best Book Award
Oh,
from
no big deal.
from the Word Guild.
Oh, well done.
So yeah, thank
Good
you.
stuff. Congratulations. Okay, so kind of on that theme, I want to talk a little bit more about your experience with church. Like many of us, I think it's safe to say you've been let down by the church and perhaps your expectations of church. And so in seasons when church felt like a place you didn't quite fit in, I'm curious what helped you to hold on to church? What helped you to say, I am going to stay a part of this community, even though these people are missing the boat, or they're not quite, I'm not connecting with it, I'm not resonating. What compelled you to stick to it? Or did you? Was there a season where you walked away from this?
I guess the same reasons that made me decide to go there, that I felt, who knows why we come to faith,
Yeah.
and that faith was always with me, that desire to serve the church, that desire to serve God's kingdom. And yeah, that was the stable throughout my life. And I couldn't turn my back on that.
So even though there was this sense of discouragement or maybe frustration with the church, there was and I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, but you sense that there was like this deep gravity that continued to pull you in, and it's like, I don't have the option to resist this kind of thing. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, well, that's kind of neat. Huh. It's funny because there's a lot of people don't have that. Like a lot of people were turned off by the church, and maybe we know some people as well, who said, you know what, I'm done. And then they just walked away. And that wasn't your story, which is great. That's why you're here today. I love it. It's cool. Okay. When, perhaps you reflected a little bit on sort of the aversion that the church, capital C church, has had toward the arts, especially within perhaps evangelicalism. I know that some of the more mainline churches seem to celebrate the arts more, but within the evangelical tradition, within sort of the low church tradition, there seems to be an aversion to the arts in general. And I don't mean to stereotype it. I know that churches, there's exceptions to that. But as a rule, you'd agree that that's probably true. Okay, so why do you think that is? Why do you think there is this sort of dearth of celebrating the arts?
I was thinking about that this morning, and I was thinking how throughout the centuries, the aristocracy were patrons of the arts. They all went to the opera, they all went to the ballet and all that, but they would never dream of associating with the performers. And they considered the performers to be immoral and
Beneath them.
And so that prejudice has always been part of society. And I think that artists of all disciplines have a reputation for being quite immoral, living immoral lives. And there's some justification for that.
Sure.
And but it's not universally true.
Right.
Rembrandt painted magnificent pictures of Jesus and various Bible scenes, and Handel wrote the Messiah, and Bach was a Christian. His music all reflects his faith. So the arts themselves are neither moral nor immoral. It's what the artist chooses to do with them. However, I think in fundamentalist churches, there's this feeling of, well, we have to be separate. We have to keep ourselves pure, separate from the world, and that's true. And also this idea that, well, you don't want to associate with an immoral bunch like that. But also, I think because they like simple answers.
Yeah.
And the arts can be very complex.
Sure.
Just like life is complex. And rather than wrestle with that, it's like, okay, the Christian studies his Bible, prays, goes to church, works hard. You don't need more than that.
Yeah.
And that church.
So very reductionist
Yeah.
form of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That lands. If anyone's ever tried to make sense of like Picasso's cubism or whatever, it's not like a black and white thing, right? And I'm not in any way an artsy guy, so you can probably tell. But when I stand before a painting, it's a different side of your brain that has to think through that stuff, right? And I think within evangelical fundamentalist traditions, there is this tendency for us to have, like you said, simple answers, right? We want black and white thinking, we want just concreteness, and art in itself does not allow that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. And yet, mainline churches seem to have made room for that.
That's right. And that was the interesting part. I kind of feel like I'm a hybrid.
Like you had this Presbyterian background and this kind of thing, yeah.
The mainline churches have generally celebrated and respected the arts. But in my experience, they didn't have that evangelical passion.
Right. Which is interesting because oftentimes it's passion that drives art.
Yes.
Right? And so there's a lack of that.
Yes.
And yet there is a celebration of the arts at the same time.
Yes.
And you seem to have embodied it all, which is wonderful. That's great. Yeah. It's making me think a lot about this stuff. I don't have any art history background or anything, but when you look, especially before the 20th century, and through classical music or through paintings and all this, like you said, so many of these famous artists were deeply churched people, deeply religious people who had a passion and who expressed the only way they knew how, through their art, right? And it seems like we've lost that. There's CCM music, I guess, but there just seems to be not a lot of artistic expression in the evangelical or even the post-evangelical church, which is to our shame. So I appreciate that you are pushing for it, because it's definitely an expression that needs to be done. Okay, so at the end of your little bio here, and this is interesting that this story made it into your bio. I asked Marianne if she would provide, a story that kind of captures her life, a biography here. And this story about your home group, there's your small group that took time out of their Thursday night Bible study to attend your Cambrian Players production, obviously moved you so much that you included it as part of your life story.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more about how that moved you or why that had such an impact on you?
Well, in the church we had been in previously, I really felt that nobody really knew me. I mean, they knew who I was.
Sure.
But they didn't know me, and they had no interest in knowing me. And when we started attending the other church, there was one man who every time he saw me, he would ask me about my writing. And that just really, really meant something to me. I thought he could ask me, general talk, but
Small talk stuff?
he asked about what mattered to me, and that was a whole new experience to me, because I always felt like writing was something I could never talk about.
Yeah.
And so by the same token, the fact that this whole small group would show up, I thought, gee, in my previous church, I don't think most of them would even approve of theater and acting, much less do something like that. The support just said something to me.
Yeah, it says a lot about the character,
Yes.
the character of the church community, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. a little bit of an aside, but I've been preparing sort of an annual report for the board and reflecting on this past year in our community. And one of the threads that kept coming up in my interactions with new folks especially has just been how welcoming folks in our community have been. And I'm not doing that to like pat us on the back or anything. I'm just saying there has been, I think, a struggle historically in this community to like make people feel welcome and a part of this community beyond, you know, hey, go get a coffee. Like actually asking questions about one another beyond just the superficial, like you say, the small talk stuff, to actually get to know one another. And I can't tell you how encouraged I am to see that in this community. And I encourage all of us to continue focusing on that, because I think that's just like a really life-giving thing. People want to be known. We all want to be known. And when you walk into a space like this with a bunch of random strangers, like it can be tough. And so when we go out of our way to say hey, and to talk to people and to ask questions that go, you know, sometimes beyond the surface, maybe not the first interaction, but like as we get to know, like we intentionally try to get to know and connect with people. I think that just does wonders in building community, don't you? So I encourage all of us to do that. And clearly your story is a testament to that as well. Like a community that surrounded you and said, hey, Marianne, we want to celebrate your gifts. And as important as our Thursday night Bible study is, we think this is more important. And I think that's such a beautiful display of what it means to be Jesus to one another. So awesome. I'm glad you shared that. Okay. I'm gonna read this question because it's a little bit dense, but this is a question that gets a little bit hairy. So a lot of us struggle with identity these days. Our sense of self is completely defined by our job, or our gender, or our sexuality, or even our hobbies. So my question for you, in relation to your connection with the arts, painting, writing, all of these different things, is have you ever struggled with your sense of identity as an artist? And can you speak of the ways that you've perhaps navigated that? How have you navigated that over the years? How have you, or has it been a struggle, I guess, first of all? Have you found your identity in your art? And does that challenge you? Can you speak to that? I don't know. Open topic, go. Talk about identity and art and your life as a Jesus follower and all of that. Give her.
Well, the question of identity is an interesting one. When people, nowadays I think there's a lot of Christians who are right, but if you go back 30 or 40 years, there wasn't a lot of Christian literature out there, right. Except for Christian romances, Christian nurse novels, that kind of thing, which was generally not very high quality literature. Hey,
Karen Kingsbury, she comes to mind. Sorry, I haven't read any of her. I don't know.
I haven't either, so I can't speak to it. But that would be the only kind of fiction, right. Christian, and you would see it in a Christian bookstore. But that's what people would think of when they think Christian writer.
Right.
So then, when more Christians, maybe a generation later, started. Some were interested in writing and so on. They wanted to not be identified as a Christian writer. And they also wanted to say, I don't always have to write about religious issues.
Yeah.
So they would say, I'm not a Christian writer. I am a writer who happens to be Christian.
Right.
And I thought, that's great. I embraced that for a while. Now I'm at a point in my life where I think, our identity is not in the things that we do.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of what Jesus meant when he talked about don't build your house on the sand because it can collapse.
Yeah.
Build your house on the rock. Well, we know that's in reference to salvation, but it's also in reference to identity.
Yeah.
If you build your house on being an artist, a business person, a mom,
right.
Those things can be taken away from us.
Yep.
And then where are we? What happens to our identity then? But so I have learned my identity is not as an artist. My identity is as a Jesus follower, a child of God, someone who God loves. That's the rock. Mm-hmm. And that can never be taken away from me.
Amen.
So now I would say I am a Christian who happens to be an artist.
Right. As one facet of you, who you are, right? But it's not the entirety.
No.
Right? The entirety of you is you're following Jesus. That's who you are.
That's who I am, yes.
Child of God. Right on. Oh man, that is super helpful for me. It's super helpful. And just this idea of the house built on the sand. Yeah, I've always looked at it through a lens of all this is about salvation, but you're right. This is also about identity and perhaps other things as well. But again, just to reinforce that, when we build our identity on our arts, our hobbies, our gender, whatever thing of the day, which is our tendency as a society to do, and our society says this is what you should do, when we capitulate to that, it's like building our house on sand. Yeah, and those things, like you say, fade away. It can be taken from you in a minute. So to build it on the rock, it's great. I love that. Cool. Okay, I have one more question, and then I'm going to open it up if you folks have questions. So think about those now as well, and then we're going to wrap it up. If someone walked up to you today, Marianne, and said, why are you still a Christian? Look at all the junk that the church has done in this world. Look at their ignorance. Look at the way they're anti-intellectual. Look at this problem and that problem. What would you say to that person? What compels you to maintain your faith, to be part of a Christian community, to find your identity, as we said, in Christ to this day, as a Jesus follower for what, 30, 40 years?
More than 50 now.
Oh, 50? Oh, you only look 30 or 40, so I just assumed it was your whole life. Okay. Anyway, for all of these years that you have maintained your faith, why? What is it? What would you say to someone who says, what are you doing?
Well, it's a good question. If God hadn't shown up in my life numerous times, I probably wouldn't. Because you can't just go on for 50 years believing in something you were told 50 years ago, if there's no evidence.
Yeah.
But in my faith journey, God has shown up in some incredibly amazing and personal ways.
Undeniable ways.
Sorry?
Undeniable ways.
Undeniable ways.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that I hung on to my faith, I guess, as that God hung on to me.
Right.
And I think, what would I do without him? I remember when Jesus was teaching, and some of his followers fell away and said, this teaching's too hard for us.
Yeah.
And he turned to his disciples and said, well, what about you guys? Are you going to leave me too? And one of them said, well, where would we go?
Yeah.
You have the words of eternal life. And I guess that's how I feel. It's like no matter what kind of a crisis, I may have found myself in, or difficulties or challenges, where would I go?
Yeah. Is there a word you would offer to those perhaps in our community who maybe are on the verge of giving up on their faith? People who have seen sort of the ugly side of church, who have not felt God's presence and his hand in their life? Is there something you would say to them?
Well, I feel your struggle. I feel your pain. And so does God. God is listening to your heart. And would just encourage you to tell God all about it. To ask him to show you the way. I mean, there have been times that Reg and I have had to come to the conclusion to leave a certain church.
Sure.
And not just one. I mean, we lived in Terrace Bay and went through a couple of things there and in Thunder Bay. And, you know, we would reach the point when we would think, okay, this church does not represent Jesus.
Right.
Not as far as we're concerned. And if it doesn't represent Jesus, then what's the point?
Right.
But it didn't mean we turned our back on the church. We just said, okay, then God has another place for us. And that's always been a real blessing. Sometimes things are really bad in one place because God is trying to nudge you into a better place. And I love that verse. When I went through one of those situations and then we came to another place, I really loved that verse in the Psalms that says, he brought me into an open place. Because I felt like I'd been in this very closed place, I felt like I was in a locked room with the oxygen slowly being
Dissipated.
sucked out of it.
Yeah.
But then God brought me into an open place.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's an open place there for you. God, you are not abandoned, and God is not the particular church background you're in.
Right. Yeah, that's so encouraging. Well, friends, I want to open it up just for 2 or 3 minutes to anyone in our community who maybe has a question about Marianne's life, about her relationship with the arts over the years, about her faith journey, anything that you'd like to ask her. I'm putting her on the spot right now. Feel free to just do this. Jax, let me reiterate this just for the recording. Have you gone through a period or a season in your life where you've, like the arts, the work that you've done, you felt dry? Is that essentially it? Like you felt like writer's block. And how have you overcome that? How have you gone through that?
Oh, yeah, lots of times. Talking to other writers has been a big help. Listening to artists' podcasts, because the arts can be a very lonely thing. If we try to kind of subsist on our own fuel, we will run out. And I get together once in a while with a couple of friends. We call ourselves the 3 M's because all our names begin with the letter M.
Very clever.
And one of them's used the phrase, the day-to-day despair of being a writer.
Oh.
And I thought, that is so perfect. And it also kind of encouraged me, like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah.
So talking to other artists and sharing your struggles and realizing, oh, I'm not the only one who goes through these times. That really helps a lot. And it's like the illustration, they use it for church, but I think it's pertinent here, is that when a bunch of logs are together in a fire, they keep each other burning, but if you pull one out, it'll
Soon
go
goes out, yeah.
So artists can keep each other burning, and yeah.
Cool, great. Any other questions? So Rhonda's asking if you can share some of your perspective and on what you've learned from your art being done in a different culture overseas, and any lessons kind of learned, type of thing.
Are you talking about when I was in Belize?
this is not what we talked about this morning, but you've had conversations where you've talked about your intercultural experience with Rhonda, I guess.
Oh, right.
I don't know.
Okay, well, one year, Reg and I had this bright idea. Well, it was more my bright idea.
Well done.
That we were going to go to a school in Belize where they needed help with the music program. And I'd had lots of experience teaching kids choir and doing Christian musicals and stuff. So I thought, oh, this would be great, and so we signed up and we went there, and we were not in like the touristy part of Belize. We were in a very
Actual Belize.
Yeah, the real
Yeah,
Belize.
the real deal, yeah.
And so anyway, wasn't as much fun as I thought, but anyway.
You're hoping for beaches, huh? Beaches.
I learned that I'm not missionary material.
Okay, it's good to know.
However, teaching the music was, for the most part, quite successful because it was very much part of their culture to sing. And so these kids just went nuts for this music. They sang their hearts out. And what was especially satisfying was to go into the grade 7 and 8 class and see the boys, as well as the girls, throwing themselves into the singing and drumming on their desks. And it was just really, really exciting. I also taught them Steve Bell's rendition of Ride On, King Jesus.
Oh, yes. I remember you told us about this.
And they went crazy for it.
Everyone familiar with Ride On, King Jesus? Yeah. Most of us are.
And so they asked their church if they could perform it there. And all of this was the positive stuff.
Yeah.
The negative stuff was we were not all that culturally aware. And what we had announced to the school at the beginning was, a song by song, I was going to teach them all the songs to this musical, Fool in the Furnace, and they were going to perform it at the end. And we rented a stage, and we rented sound equipment, and all the rest of it. And then just about a week or two before it was time to do it, the principal of the school informed me that we couldn't have it in the evening because none of the kids would show up. Had to be in the daytime so that they could force them to be there. Of course, them performing it in the daytime meant their parents couldn't come because their parents were working. And I was absolutely stunned because the kids loved singing, sitting at their desks. They had never seen a performance in their lives. They didn't want to perform. They didn't want to get up on stage. In the end, they had to be forced on the stage with teachers there as guards, so
they wouldn't leave. Wow.
It was, and of course there was no audience. So it was totally demoralizing.
Oh.
And if we'd had a little bit of cultural knowledge and known, sure, teach them to sing, they will love it. Mm-hmm. Don't expect them to perform. Sure. They're not North American kids. They're not used to seeing performances.
Yeah.
And that was
a hard lesson learned. Aw. I'm gonna. Okay, is it a quick one? Go ahead. This way, yeah. Right. So Jax wants to know if you have some thoughts on the Christian music or Christian arts industry, essentially, and its sort of control, and it's the stereotype of it being controlled so adamantly. Yeah. Maybe just do it quickly because we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't like most pop, like Christian music that comes down the pipes. But there are amazing Christian musicians out there. And, I find them on YouTube. They won't be famous. They won't have labels. But they're so good. They're
Yeah, go ahead.
wonderful. The other stuff is more, to me, it's more commercial, more churned out, and it lacks authenticity and beauty and everything else. Other art forms, kind of hard to say. Yeah, I'd have to think hard about that. I think, yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
That's too complex and big.
Yeah, that's a big topic to discuss at this point. I'm going to close now and just say thank you so much. I just want to share as well that Reg and Marianne now have been part of our community for a year, and it has been such an encouragement to me. They often reach out after a message or after service and just say how blessed they were, and that really warms my heart. So thank you both for doing that, and I don't know if that's like a gift or something, but or a spiritual gift. I think it might be a gift of encouragement. So I appreciate that, and I get to be on the receiving end of that. And we're just so grateful you're part of this church family. And so would everyone just give Marianne a hand? And thanks so much. I'm going to invite the band up as we close this morning with the bread and the cup. And I'll take that, thanks.